Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Loving obeisances unto the Supreme Being Vasudeva, who alone is. Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhignaswarat tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayah tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatratra sargo mrisha dhamna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. We meditate upon the transcendent absolute being from whom springs forth this universe. He is present in all that exists and yet distinct from everything. He is fully conscious and totally independent. He revealed to the first seer Brahma the import of Vedic wisdom. The material creation made of threefold gunas appears in him as though real, like water in a mirage. Being eternally self-effulgent, he is ever free of the illusion of the material world. We meditate upon him, the Supreme Being. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amrita drava sanyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. O devotees who relish a taste for divine love, Bhagavatam is the fully ripened fruit of the wish-yielding tree of Vedas, flowing as immortal nectar from Shuka Brahmarshi. Go on drinking this nectar day after day. So now we are entering the most beautiful 9th chapter of the second Skandha of Bhagavatam. And this chapter is very special because it is the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. It has the 4 verses that are spoken directly by Bhagavan to Brahma. So in the previous episode, we saw that Parikshit asked a bunch of questions on various aspects of philosophy and nature of Maya and time and dharma, and also in general whatever stories of Hari that are there for listeners to purify their hearts. So after asking all these questions, Shuka was very pleased, and we saw that Shuka said, I will respond to you by telling you first the Bhagavatam that was given by Bhagavan directly to Brahma. He said, Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpa Upagate. He says, in the beginning, the Bhagavatam that was spoken by Bhagavan himself to Brahma, which is verily the Vedas itself, which is the essence of the Vedas, that I shall tell you. And then he now continues to proceed talking about this episode by first giving some general teachings on the nature of Maya. Shuka tells Parikshit that any connection that one has to this phenomenal world is exactly of the same nature as the connection we have to the dream world. So he begins off by a very beautiful Vedantic teaching that says that all that we perceive in the waking world and how we take it to be as real is no different from how we take everything in the dream world to be real, because both are only due to Maya. That which seems to appear as many is just this Maya, and this Maya takes diverse forms. It takes multiple manifold animate and inanimate forms, and it also gives the sense I and mine, which we saw already. Brahma also teach Narada that the very same Maya of Bhagavan is what gives the illusion of I and mine. And of course, the grace that removes I and mine also comes within this Maya at the right time by listening to a teaching like Bhagavatam like this. So therefore, Shuka says, to be free of this delusion of I and mine and to realize the self is to transcend this I and mine, and to transcend all the gunas, to transcend time itself, and to transcend Maya. So essentially, Shuka points out that when one recognizes that the very I and mine that is associated with the body and the mind and thoughts and people and objects and all the rest, when it is all seen as simply a movement of thought, just like a dream, and they keep coming and going, and therefore they have no abiding reality, then we are free of this delusion and we can realize our true self as the pure awareness, which is the space in which these movements come and go. And this pure awareness is the essence of the Supreme Being. So, having said this, Shuka Brahmarshi proceeds to now narrate the exact teaching that the Supreme Being, Bhagavan, gave to Brahma. He says that the Lord was pleased to teach Brahma, to enlighten him, and therefore he asked him to focus on doing tapas. So in the beginning, when Brahma finds himself appearing and being alone as the first created being, he finds that there is no one anywhere, and he knows that his purpose is to embark on creation itself. He has been given the inner inspiration to embark on creation, and yet he doesn't know how to go about it. And therefore, he sits and he wonders because he doesn't have any vision on what is the right purpose, what is the right direction to go about it. And when he wonders, it says he hears a sound of two letters. And very poetically, it is said that he was given the 16th and the 21st syllable of the Sanskrit alphabets, and they correspond to ta and pa. So the alphabets of Sanskrit are ka kha ga ga nga, cha cha ja ja na, ta ta da da na, ta. So that's 16. Then ta tha tha dha na, pa. That's 21. So then it goes as pa pa ba ba ma and so on. So 16th and 21st corresponds to ta and pa, and therefore that means tapa. And tapa means penance. So what Brahma was instructed was to do penance. And so Brahma looked around and sees that there is no form from which this voice is coming. He just hears the sound of these two letters, the pa, but he doesn't see any form behind it. So, after looking for a form of any kind from which these letters seem to emanate, he recognizes that there is no form but only the letters, the sounds, and so he resolves to just listen to that instruction, take the instruction to heart, and do tapas. So, being a great ascetic nature that he has been endowed with, he sits for a long time, subduing his mind, subduing his breath, and he completely goes into tapas. And then finally, he gets the clarity of the vision to create. And as he does so, and he opens his eyes, he is revealed the most beautiful vision. He is revealed the vision of the Supreme Being appearing with his abode, in his abode. So this abode is called as Vaikuntha. And so Brahma is graced with this beautiful vision of the Supreme Being in his own abode. And this abode is beautifully described, the vision that Brahma receives at this point. This is a place where there is no effect of any maya, there is no gunas, rajas, tamas, or even sattva. There is no time. All there is just the beautiful vision of Sri Hari, adored by all his devotees. And he says that Brahma was able to see this vision of Hari with this darkish complexion, lotus like eyes, wearing yellow clothing, pitambar, charming looking with 4 arms, and all the attendants were having the same look. So everyone looked exactly as Hari. All the attendants, those who were serving Hari, those who were moving around. So this vision was a beautiful vision showing that everything is Hari in Vaikuntha, by showing that not only is the Supreme Lord, but all his attendants, all his devotees in this abode, Vaikuntha, everyone is of the same complexion, same, exactly the same look. It's like there are so many beings multiplied from the same being, which is exactly the essence, and that is the vision he is shown. And also it is such a opulent vision with aerial cars and various opulences, and Sri or Lakshmi adoring his lotus feet and singing his glories. And seeing all this, Brahma is so moved. He is full of tears in his eyes. His hair is standing up, and he is beholding this beautiful form. It says so beautifully, Dadarsha Tatra Akhila Satvatam Patim Shriyaf Patim Yajnapatim Jagatpatim. He is the Lord of the universe, Lord of all sacrifices, Lord of wealth, Lakshmi, and Lord of all created beings from all previous cycles, self of all. So, this Supreme Being he beholds in this beautiful vision. And as we saw even in the vision of Paramatma in the heart, it was the same vision, but now this vision is given externally to Brahma, not only as the Supreme Lord Bhagavan, but also all his attendants, everyone in this abode of Vaikuntha, in this heaven that is beyond all heavens, the highest realm, is filled with only the Supreme Being taking all the various forms. And seeing this grace, and seeing the Supreme Being's nectar like looks, his gracious smile, his reddish lotus like eyes, his beautiful crown, his yellow silk golden dress, the pitambar, 4 arms. So everything that he sees this most opulent, beautiful vision of the Supreme Being standing in front of him in this vision, and in his dham, in his abode, eternal abode, and with all the attendants all looking like him, sitting in a high throne, and with the various Shaktis, that is, the various potencies, all personified. There are 6 opulences that are normally associated with the term Bhagavan. They are renunciation, fame, lordship, prosperity, wisdom, and righteousness. So all these 6 are personified there again in the form of Bhagavan. The various Shaktis, that is the elements of Prakriti and the principle of mind, all of them are embodied. So everything is embodied and personified, all looking as Hari. And seeing this beautiful vision, which is so wonderful to even envision in the mind's eye, this scene of Vaikuntha where Hari alone is, and Hari appears in so many forms. There's so many attendants, so many uh, devotees, and with all the opulences all personified. And Brahma sees this wonderful form, and he is in rapture, as we said, and he is so delighted. And the Supreme Being, the Lord, smiles at Brahma, and he says to him, "You are now fit to listen," because he is very pleased with Brahma's uh, penance. So he speaks first in soft tone. The Supreme Being says, "With Vedas in your heart, you have done this long penance and this has pleased me, because unlike any hypocrisy in tapas, any hypocrisy through uh, mystical processes or through speculation, one who earnestly and sincerely does penance always pleases me. He says, Chiram bhritena tapasa dustosha kuta yoginam. Kuta yoginam means those who pretend to be yogis and who do various so-called penances only with desire to attain siddhis, attain supernatural powers, and so on. They do not please the Supreme Being, but one who is simple and earnest with no desire except love of God. He is alone pleasing God, and therefore that's why Bhagavan says that I am pleased because your tapas is bereft of any such ulterior motive, and therefore you can ask anything that I will bestow, for I bestow what is good for all. You did great tapa, great penance, and therefore you've already been blessed with the sight of my divine abode, and you did tapa as I commanded. It was I who commanded you to do tapa with the two letters tapa or penance, because he says, tapas is my very heart. Bhagavan says, tapo me hridayam sakshad atmaham tapaso anagha. He says, tapo me hridayam, tapas or penance is my very heart, and sakshad atmaham tapasaha, that is, tapas is my very nature. So Bhagavan Vasudeva says that tapas is my very heart, and by tapas I create, I maintain, and I absorb in every cycle. That is, he brings forth Brahma himself through tapas, and every activity is done through tapas, through penance, and therefore tapas is the most pleasing thing. So here what's wonderful to notice is that this word tapas or penance is not only sitting with eyes closed in meditation, but any activity done with earnestness, recognizing the source as the Supreme Being without any sense of doership, and offering whatever comes up as an offering to the same Supreme Being from whom the very potency to act comes in the first place, and thereby taking what is His and offering it back to Him is tapas. And that tapas, that quality of penance, can be brought about in any activity in our day to day life. And so here, Brahma is told that because he did tapas, which is the very heart of the Supreme Being, he is pleased. So he can ask anything. And Brahma says, O Bhagavan, you dwell in all the hearts and you know all the intentions. So I don't need to ask you of anything except one, which is bless me with the insight by which your formless being takes all these forms. So as then Brahma gives the famous metaphor of the spider, how it spins a web out of itself and withdraws it back to itself. He says, O Madhava, similarly, your Maya seems to multiply yourself and then maintains it and dissolves it just like a sport. And therefore, I want to know how you do this. So he is asking for the essence, the same question that Narada asked Brahma and that Parikshit asked Shuka. Now, in the very beginning, Brahma himself is asking Bhagavan. That is why this question and the answer comes directly from Bhagavan, which is the essence of the whole teaching. So Brahma says, please give me this teaching of the insight by which your formless being manifests as all these forms, so that let me embark on this act of creation without any sense of doership. And he also makes this prayer that you've been so dear to me, because when the Lord appears, he holds the hand of Brahma dearly like a friend. And he says, you see the vision of my eternal abode, and gives him this beautiful vision of Vaikuntha. So Brahma says, I'm so beyond words moved by your holding my hand as a friend, and therefore the only prayer I have is, let no pride enter my heart, and let me always remain without any confusion, without any pride as I embark on this creation. So please now tell me, what is the secret of this Maya and how it manifests? So now the Supreme Being, Bhagavan, speaks and he says, now I shall reveal to you the most esoteric knowledge as well as the process of realizing it through bhakti, through surrender. And by my grace, you shall have this true wisdom as to my essential nature, my truth, my virtues, all my activities, which are all through this energy of Maya and my supreme greatness. So Bhagavan tells Brahma that now I am going to give you the most esoteric, he says rahasyam, that is the most, and paramaguhyam, the most esoteric and confidential knowledge, wisdom, by which you can realize me through the wisdom as well as through devotion and surrender. And then he speaks what is called as Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the 4 verses which comprise the essence of all of Bhagavatam, and in fact all Upanishads and everything there is. So Narayana here says, the first verse, prior to creation, I alone existed in my absolute state. Other than me, there was nothing gross, subtle, or causal. And I exist even after creation, and I exist during creation as this world, and I am that which alone remains. That's the first verse. Ahameva asam eva agre na anyat yat sadasat param paschadaham yadetat cha yo vashishyeta sosyam aham. Bhagavan says, as we said, prior to creation, I alone exist in the absolute state. After creation, I alone exist in the absolute state. And during this phenomenal world's appearance, again, I alone exist in the form of this world. And there is nothing other than me which is gross or subtle or the cause of both. Then the next verse he says, that which makes it possible for something to appear in my being without any reality whatsoever and which obscures my own being is regarded as Maya. So here he defines Maya by saying that energy that makes it possible for something seeming to appear. So in the very first verse of Bhagavatam, we always say that the threefold gunas and the world appear in him like water in a mirage. So that is what is referred to here. Bhagavan says, that which makes everything appear in me, and not just appear in me, but through that obscure my own being, is my very Maya. Then the next verse he says, as elements like earth, water, fire, air, and space seem to enter the bodies of beings, and yet they also can be said to not enter. That is, if we look at our own bodies, in one sense, our bodies are made of only 5 elements. And so the constituent elements of this body, of any body, is simply the 5 elements. So we can say the 5 elements have entered this body, But on the other hand, it can also be said that there is no question of entering because the five elements is all there is and the body is in the five elements. So both are true, that the five elements are inside the body and the body is inside the five elements. Similarly, Bhagavan says the Supreme Spirit can be said to be entered into beings, and also it can be said that all the beings are inside the Supreme Spirit. Both, that is why, are used in different places. On the one hand, it is the Supreme Being that abides within all beings. On the other hand, all beings are abiding within the Supreme Being. So the mystery of this is beautifully explained by this simile, which makes it so clear how what is outside is also the five elements in the body, and what is inside the body is also the five elements. So the boundary between the body and the outside is all made of the same elements. There is nothing other than the five elements when we look at the material world. And when we look at what we call as outside, what we call as inside, and the skin that separates the two, are all made of the same five elements. So, what can be said to be within what is not always clear because it can be said both ways. So, similarly, Bhagavan says the Supreme Spirit is all there is at the essential level because even the elements are within the Supreme Spirit, which is pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is said to reside within the elements and within the beings. So therefore, the Supreme Spirit both pervades all beings and indwells all beings. Then he says, the last verse in Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So the first three verses point to the nature of the truth, and the fourth verse he says the process of realizing the truth. Bhagavan says, he who is eager to know the truth of the Spirit should inquire into and ascertain it either directly or indirectly. And directly is by totally surrendering to everything as me, and indirectly by negating all that appears and disappears as not truth. So the process of negation, neti neti, which is also the essence of inquiry, self-inquiry, is called the indirect process here. And the direct process is called surrender, where everything is seen as Bhagavan. And both lead to the same truth, and both correspond to jnana and bhakti. And Bhagavan says here that either by the positive affirming process of surrender, seeing everything as me, or by the negating process of removing all that appears, coming and going as not truth, and thereby left only with the essence, which is me, either way, you can realize the truth. So these are the four verses, Chatushloki Bhagavatam, which, as we can see, contains the entire essence. The first verse again talks about the fact that Bhagavan alone is before, after, and during creation. The second verse says that what makes this creation seemingly multifold is Maya. And the third verse says that even during this world appearance, all that appears is within the Supreme Being, and the Supreme Being is within all. And the fourth is to realize this truth is by either positively surrendering to the Supreme Being as all there is in all forms, or by negating as not this, all that appears, and either way realize the truth. Having given this Chatushloki Bhagavatam, Bhagavan says, now you establish yourself fully in this doctrine that I have given you through perfect concentration, perfect meditation, and by doing so, you shall never be confused, you shall never fall prey to I and mine, and you shall create the diverse forms of life in the course of the coming kalpas or the coming time periods. So, having given this beautiful instruction to Brahma, Bhagavan withdrew his form, Hari withdrew his form, and Brahma looked and found that the beautiful form he saw disappeared in front of his eyes. He saw Bhagavan, Hari, in this most loving personal form with all his opulences and all his attendants and with Lakshmi serving him and most pleasing to look at and giving him a personal teaching of the very nature of truth and how to realize it, and then instantly the whole vision disappeared. So technically this is also called as Yoga Maya. So the Maya, which is normally found as the creation, as the phenomenal world, which has three gunas and which deludes all, is called as Mahamaya. The great Maya, which is always deluding everyone, giving the sense of I and mine, and causing, therefore, various negative qualities such as greed and envy and ego and anger and all the rest. All of this is part of Mahamaya, the great delusion, it's called. And then there is also the divine Maya, which is the energy through which Bhagavan appears in his personal form, either in earth or in such a vision of Vaikuntha. So when Bhagavan appears in Vrindavan or in the entire pastime as Krishna or as Ram, there is no effect of this Mahamaya there, because Bhagavan appears and he is the Lord of all Maya, and therefore when he appears and when he goes about his various pastimes, all of Maya is at his service, and this Yoga Maya, this divine Maya, is so pleasing, and that is why all the pastimes of Hari in the form of Krishna or Ram or Narasimha or all the various avatars have this beautiful effect of freeing one from Mahamaya. Normally, we are all caught in the net of Mahamaya, this great Maya that binds us as I and mine. But when Bhagavan gives this vision of his personal form, either as a vision as Brahma was blessed with of Vaikuntha, or as a avatar when he appears, as he says, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam, as is in the divine forms of various avatars, the birth and the activities. Through this Yoga Maya, he cleanses and he very effortlessly, by one who is able to have this vision, are able to listen to this even and connect with these stories. That's why the effect of Mahamaya is removed and Yoga Maya, which is grace, takes over. And that's what Brahma was blessed with that vision. And therefore, now Brahma was able to go about his creation with great purpose. This is what Shuka narrates, this beautiful discourse directly from Bhagavan, which is the essence of Bhagavatam. Then in due course, Brahma was waited on by Narada, which we already saw, and Parikshit is told by Shuka that Narada asked the same question as you know, and when Brahma answered Narada, the whole discourse we saw of Brahma telling Narada, now Shuka is telling that whole discourse happened because Brahma was directly blessed by Bhagavan with this knowledge, and therefore when Narada asked the same question which you asked, because Parikshit basically asked the exact same question that Narada asked, which is the exact same question that Brahma himself asked to Bhagavan. So it's coming through a nice succession. And so Shuka says that you asked the same question and Narada asked the same question, and when Narada asked it, Brahma gave the response which I told you in detail, which we saw over 3 chapters. And now Shuka says that entire response is based on what Brahma received in 4 verses, Chatushloki from Bhagavan himself. And so then Brahma gave Narada the entire Bhagavatam, which has 10 topics. So what we saw as the 3 chapters is the essence of what Brahma told Narada, but Brahma gave the complete Bhagavatam, which has 10 topics, because what Brahma was revealed after he was given this Chatushloki, this 4-verse Bhagavatam, was the complete Bhagavatam too within his heart, which contains the vision of all the various avatars and the stories that can progressively bring about realizing the truth of these 4 verses. So he got a vision of all that, and that is the essence of the entire Bhagavatam, which is the 10 skandhas yet to come. So we are about to finish the second skandha with one more chapter. The first 2 skandhas, as we see, the first skandha was just setting up the dialogue. The second skandha gives, through all these beautiful discourses, the highest teaching and essence of Bhagavatam. And now the remaining 10 skandhas are the 10 topics which will unfold to gradually purify the hearts of all listeners and to actualize the truth that is being heard in this skandha, and especially in this chapter directly from Bhagavan. And this very truth of Bhagavatam, of the entire 10 topics, is what Narada then imparted to Vyasa on Saraswati river, which is an incident we saw in the very beginning. When Vyasa was confused, Narada came and instructed Vyasa, and he was inspired to write then. And then he, of course, narrated that to his son Shuka. And now Shuka is saying that I am narrating the very same Bhagavatam to you, Parikshit. So, when I narrate the remaining 10 skandhas, it will answer all your questions, because Parikshit asks so many questions, and Shuka says this is the high level essence of the teaching that directly was received from Bhagavan himself, from Hari to Brahma, and then by which Brahma was able to get a vision of the entire Bhagavatam, which contains the answers to all your questions, which are going to be narrated by me as 10 skandhas. So with this chapter ends. In the next chapter, Shuka will detail what are those 10 topics or the 10 essential features of Bhagavatam itself, which form the remaining 10 skandhas. And with that, this skandha will end in the next episode. So for now, we have been blessed to both get a vision of the Supreme Being, Hari, in his eternal abode Vaikuntha through the narration of Shuka, and also the most blessed words of Bhagavan, the 4 verses, Chatushloki, which contains the essence of all the teachings that there is. So with this, we finish this chapter. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.